We need a war. Not just the industrial complex to make money, but for the people to restore their moral aptitude and fortitude of integrity and character. We need a war. A war simplifies and reduces us to the most base, fundamental elements of tribalism, survival. And survival would mean community, because you cannot survive alone. We need a war. A war where we don't have divided interests. We singularly, unitarily are trying to survive. We need a war. A war is the great equalizer, where men have to share their bread and water, perhaps even beg. We need a war. It reduces the class from those on the mansions, hills of Los Angeles to those in the streets on Skid Row and downtown. We need a war to remind us that we all bleed and hunger and die alike. We need a war that reminds you of what freedom actually tastes like when everything is at risk. We need a war. A war that will end the childlike juvenile playfulness of your sport team franchise seasonal seats that take you out of the hockey rings and the football stadiums, the tennis courts and the golf courses and the basketball courts to the field of life. We need a war. A war that will remove the indulgence of hedonistic libations and luxury of comfort. A war that would restore an attitude of gratitude for just having a pair of shoes, a good, strong pair of pants. We need a war that reminds you that food does not need all that decoration, all of those condiments and all of those seasonings. A simple bowl of rice and bread that's not stale. Water instead of the ale of the elixir of your drunkenness. We need a war to remind you that life has never come easy and never will be, and that there's a great price to pay for freedom, and it's not at the end, really, of a shekel or gold bullion, not a dollar, not a diamond ring, but blood, sweat, and truth. Yes, we need a war to wake up those who are sleepwalking as zombies, to take their eyes off their phones and their ears off of their musical artists, to remove them out of the theaters and put them back in the home. We need a war to remind you just how dear and precious and necessary a family is. We need a war to remind you what loyalty does and faithfulness produces. We need a war to remind you that your wealth cannot be measured by the dollars in your bank account or your stock portfolio, but by the love and the strength of your family, your community, and your national pride. We need a war to bring you back to normal and common sense, to remind you of the basics of life, the simplicity of the rules of that life. What happens when men are doing what men do and women are being who women are? We need a war to rectify and organize, control, and power without envy, covetousness, and jealousy. Like the birds in the air and the lions in the Serengeti, like the dolphin in the whale in the sea, and the ants in a colony and the bees in a hive, rank and order. The purpose not demeaned by whatever position you hold, because each position serves us all. We need a war to remind you that you have a part to play and should play it at all costs and at any expense. We need a war to bring down that proud neck and bend those stubborn, stiff knees to pray, to lift those eyes to the hills which cometh your help, not from Mount Olympus, not from the columns of Greece or the Colosseums of Rome or the monuments of Washington, D.C. No, we need a war to remind man he was created in the image of God, to be the best of that image he was created to be, his highest and his best when he is at his worst, to achieve it and press towards it. Yes, we need a war, because the comforts of peacetime and the luxury of excess and abundance has made you weak, foolish, filled with stupidity and frivolity, selfishness, greed, and addiction with no conviction of your purpose. We need a war. And so it will be. You're going to get a war. Because only a war will remind you of what freedom actually tastes like. Only a war will remind you of what God is like. Only a war will show you who your brother, who your friend, who your tribe and your community are. And only a war will teach you your place and your responsibility in it. A war will make you accountable and responsible. It will expose the weak and exalt the strong. It will give purpose and drive to the fit, and it will crush the unwilling. It's a great qualifier of who's who and what's what. It would remove the dross, the loss, the confusion, and the chaos. It will point one way, the right way. It will shine brighter because the darkness will be darker. It will elevate a man's spirit while it breaks the man's bones. It will make you the best of what you are, that cannot be defined by muscle and sinew and tissue, but by the heart beat of a soul and the thoughts and a mind. Yes, we need a war to remind us and to restore us and to revive us. It's going to take a war.